Heading further along the M40 from Bleep, we reach Oxford, home of the oldest university in the world. 4 kings, 28 prime ministers and Hugh Grant all studied in this grand city. But our point of interest is a dingy cellar bar. It was here that a future python made his comedy debut and so took his first footsteps in a career that would end with him nicking my day job as a globe-trotting presenter.
Oxford University, one of the world's great seats of learning. But it's also a crucible, a melting pot of ideas, thoughts, ideas.
This is Brasenose College, Oxford, of ancient foundation. It's actually the college supposed to go back to King Alfred, I think. When you're an undergraduate, you've spent your first year in college, and if you passed all the requisite exams, you got a second year in college. Michael Palin did not pass his exams at the beginning of his first term, so he was kept out of the college in his second year. But I was allowed this very privileged room with a fine view of the main quad and so on. So when Michael and I wanted to go and write or just be or have a coffee or anything like that, we would use my rooms up there.
Robert's room had a wonderful sort of alcove and a view out over the main quad, and it was quite sort of spacious, I suppose, for a university room. And we used to spend a lot of time in there, making lists and working things out and talking long into the night and drinking endless cups of tea.
We spent our entire time being what the Pythons would later call silly.
Hello. Good evening. Welcome. It's...
Robert said, why don't we, write our own material? And I said, well, all right, but for me, just telling jokes and being funny was quite different from writing material. So what would you do that for? He said, well, if we write a half hour's worth of cabaret, we can make some money out of it.
These cellars were brought in as a kind of nightclub in the 1950s, and the person who actually thought of doing this was none other than Michael Heseltine, who later became, of course, Lord Heseltine.
Everything that happened in the 60s happened in cellars.
And it was here that on Saturday nights there would be a jazz band, usually. We weren't quite rock and roll. And then in the interval, because the band needed a rest, we would be hired to do half-hour cabaret. And this is the equivalent of the cavern.
What became a trademark of our performing was a sketch about Tide. It was Tide washing powder, held up and done in a foreign voice, in a sort of cod commercial.
We förnep altijd door de BBC 2 verda. We rennen efter afterpreparat.
Tide. Tide auf dem Bong Tide gesplint.
Tide auf der Schüttelbong, Tide geskummels.
Ja, Tide. Lovely Tide. Sehr, sehr gut.
If you like, we sort of had our apprenticeship in that kind of comedy at Oxford.
And please welcome to the stage the absolutely wonderful Mr. Nick Doody.
Every bottle of Jack Daniels says on it, on the label, maiden bottle, Lynchburg, Tennessee. The adverts for Jack Daniels have very little in common with your experience. Nothing to do with whiskey, right? It should be like, oh, Mr. Jack smashes glasses into his own face. To intimidate people he imagines are looking at him funny. Jack Daniels.